The Philippines is the world's most unpredictable country, but why? The word unpredictable is a broad term that can be used in many different situations to mean different things. Usually, it describes something that is hard or impossible to guess, expect, or figure out. To understand why the Philippines is an unpredictable country, it is essential to understand its political landscape. The political landscape in the Philippines is marked by frequent changes in leadership, reflecting the country's democratic system, where power is in the hands of the people. This system has led to dramatic shifts in leadership through elections, coups, and political realignments. Presidents in the Philippines serve a single 6-year term with no possibility of re-election, and each new president often brings radically different policies, especially in areas like foreign relations, economic reforms, and social issues. This frequent change in leadership makes the political environment in the country unpredictable. Philippine political history has been shaped by periods of instability, especially during transitions between different administrations. The end of one president's term often brings surprises, as leadership changes do not always follow the predictions of political analysts. For example, when President Ferdinand Marcos was ousted in 1986 through the People Power Revolution, his successor, Corazon Aquino, introduced a new direction for the country. Aquino's administration worked to restore democracy after years of authoritarian rule. But this shift has also brought significant changes to both domestic and international policies. Policies set by the Marcos administration were quickly reversed, especially on issues such as the economy and human rights. Elections in the Philippines often feature a wide variety of candidates with different platforms. Public opinion can shift rapidly, often influenced by media coverage, high-profile events, or emerging social movements. For example, in the 2016 presidential election, then-candidate Rodrigo Duterte surprised many by winning in a field of established politicians, mainly due to his tough stance on crime and his blunt political style. Public sentiment played a huge role in his success, and the campaign was heavily shaped by his personality and media coverage. Similarly, previous elections, such as the one that brought Joseph Estrada to power in 1998, also saw an outsider candidate rise to power due to changing public attitudes, even though he was later impeached in 2001. These examples show how elections in the Philippines are often full of surprises, where unexpected candidates can win and dramatically change the political landscape. The frequent shifts in leadership also have a major impact on the country's foreign policy. Depending on the president, the Philippines may either strengthen ties with traditional allies like America or pursue new relationships with countries like China or Japan. For example, under President Benigno Aquino III, the Philippines took a more confrontational stance with China over the South China Sea, bringing the issue to international courts. In contrast, President Duterte's stance toward China was not aggressive. He shifted foreign policy priorities to focus on strengthening ties with Beijing, despite ongoing disputes over territorial waters. Economic and social policies in the Philippines are often subjected to major changes after each presidential election. New leaders may prioritize different economic sectors based on their personal political views. For example, under President Aquino, the Philippines focused on improving its economy through increased investments and closer ties with international markets. Under Duterte, the focus shifted to large-scale infrastructure projects through his Build program and stimulate growth. Social policies, particularly regarding education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation, are also subject to change with each new administration. Finally, the political changes in the Philippines have also played a role in shaping the rise and fall of various social movements. New leadership can either create a supportive or adversarial environment for these movements. For example, labor rights and environmental movements have been particularly affected by changes in leadership. During the Marcos regime, activists were often suppressed, while the Aquino administration allowed more space for social movements to flourish. The Philippines has experienced significant periods of economic growth, especially in recent decades, but it still faces major challenges that affect its long-term development. While the country has made progress in areas such as GDP growth and attracting foreign investments, issues like income inequality, poverty, and infrastructure deficits continue to hinder its potential. These challenges, combined with the potential for unexpected economic shifts, make it difficult to predict the future of the Philippine economy. For example, before the 2019 pandemic, the country's GDP growth rate often exceeded 6%, one of the highest in Asia. This economic expansion was driven by many factors, like thriving services industry, especially business process outsourcing, and strong remittances from Filipinos working abroad. The government's Build infrastructure program under President Duterte also contributed to growth by improving roads, bridges, and public transportation. Additionally, the Philippines became an attractive destination for foreign direct investment, thanks to its young English-speaking population and a growing consumer market. In 2019, for instance, the Philippines ranked among the top recipients of FDI in Southeast Asia. Reforms like the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion, or TRAIN, law were implemented to boost government revenue and reduce the fiscal deficit. Despite the economic growth, income inequality remains a significant issue in the Philippines. While some urban areas have benefited from the economic boom, many people, especially in rural regions, continue to live in poverty. While Metro Manila has undergone rapid urbanization and development, many provinces still struggle with poor infrastructure and limited employment opportunities. This imbalance contributes to social unrest and dissatisfaction, which can affect both the political stability and the economic future of the country. The country's vulnerability to natural disasters, such as typhoons and earthquakes, worsens the infrastructure situation. The frequent destruction of infrastructure due to these disasters delays recovery efforts and puts additional strain on the economy. For example, Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 caused massive destruction, and the cost of rebuilding infrastructure slowed the country's economic growth. The unpredictability of the Philippine economy is influenced by both global and local factors. On the global level, changes in commodity prices, shifts in international trade policies, or economic crises in major countries can have a significant impact. For example, the global recession of 2008 affected the Philippines, causing a decline in exports and a slowdown in remittances from overseas workers. At the local level, political instability, changes in government policies, and unforeseen events caused economic fluctuations. For example, when Rodrigo Duterte was elected in 2016, there were concerns about his tough stance on human rights and his unpredictable foreign policy, especially regarding America. But his focus on infrastructure and poverty alleviation helped maintain economic growth. Although some political moves, such as his pivot toward China, created uncertainty in foreign relations and trade. The 2019 pandemic is another example of an unexpected event that severely impacted the economy. As an archipelago in the Western Pacific, the country is situated at the intersection of important maritime trade routes, which has significantly influenced its foreign policy decisions and interactions with global powers like China and America. Its role in Southeast Asia is important, especially given its proximity to major regional powers like China and Taiwan, and the contested South China Sea. One clear example of how the Philippines' foreign policy can shift is its approach to the South China Sea dispute. The Philippines has faced tensions with China over territorial claims in the region, especially concerning the Spratly Islands and the Scarborough Shoal. Under former President Duterte, the Philippines adopted a more neutral stance toward China, prioritizing economic cooperation through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. But under President Marcos, the country has increasingly focused on strengthening its ties with America and other regional allies, while still maintaining economic relations with China. The Philippines is in a tough position, and that's why it's unpredictable. It shares military ties with one superpower, America, and it also shares economic ties with another superpower, China. The Philippines shares a long-standing alliance with America, dating back to the period after World War II, when it was a U.S. colony. The U.S. provides the Philippines with military aid, training, and logistical support, while the Philippines benefits from the presence of U.S. forces in the region. Under Duterte's administration, this relationship was somewhat strained as he sought to distance the Philippines from America and develop closer ties with China. Despite this, with the election of President Marcos, there has been a clear shift back toward the US. This is evident in the renewal of military exercises, the strengthening of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, and an emphasis on a strategic partnership focused on countering China's growing influence in the region. This change clearly shows how leadership transitions in the Philippines can affect its foreign policy direction. While the Philippines and China maintain strong economic ties, especially in trade, investment, and infrastructure development, the two countries also clash over competing territorial claims in the South China Sea. In 2016, the Philippines won a landmark ruling from the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which invalidated China's expansive claims in the region. Despite this legal victory, the Philippines under Duterte chose not to confront China directly, but instead adopted a more diplomatic approach. Under the administration of Marcos, the Philippines has become more vocal in defending its territorial sovereignty. Let us know what you think in the comment section.